Hi friends, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to share with you 10 investing principles that I follow in my real estate investment journey. These are my rules, my principles, and it actually helps me a lot to move forward with my investment journey. So without further ado, let's dive into it. The first principle that I follow is that I would always buy a positive cash flow property. Now, what do you mean by positive cash flow? It means the property has to make money every single year. I would not buy something negative gearing or negative cash flow or something that is continuously losing money, because that's my principle. If 90% properties in Australia are not positive cash flow property, and hey, I am not going to buy those 90% properties. I am only going to focus on 10% those properties which is positive cash flow property. For that, I have to find out, I have to look for this, and if I don't find it, my principle is that I am not going to buy it. I would rather wait than buying a negative gearing. So I'm not pressured to buy a property if it is a negative gearing, if it is something that is not going to make money from day one. Now, positive cash flow, positive gearing property doesn't mean that it is actually very straightforward. Sometimes it needs to be creative. Sometimes we have to make this creative way to make a negative gearing or negative cash flow to a positive cash flow. For example, that I might buy an older house and then renovate it and uplift the rent. I can buy something, then you can subdivide it and have two incomes. So all these things that I would do, but the principle that I would always follow is that I would always buy a positive cash flow property. I would always buy something that makes money. I would not buy something that will lose money continuously. The second principle that I follow is that begin with an end in mind. What do you mean by that? When I started investing, I didn't know much. However, now these days, I would always buy a property with an end in mind. It means that what I'm going to do with the property, what is the outcome from that property. Maybe I am planning to subdivide that property. Maybe I am going to renovate and sell that property. Maybe 5 years down the line, whatever I am actually planning, I need to make sure that I have an end in mind. I am not planning to keep a property forever. I am not, because this is my vehicle to become a financial independent. This is a vehicle where I actually want to achieve my financial goal, and that I would be able to do with an end in mind. So going forward, anything that I buy, end in mind is an important factor, because I would see that okay, if I do these things and then if I can sell this property this much profit, it actually drives me to do all these things. If I buy something and I do not have any plans and I just keep there, then it is not going to work for me, and I feel that I am not actually taking my full financial outcome. Principle number 3 is that I would always manage rental property through a licensed real estate property manager. I do not want to deal with my tenant directly. Now, I actually live in Sydney. All my investment property is in Queensland. So even though I buy property in Sydney, I would not do this on my own. I would always give it to a licensed property manager. This is the principles that I will follow, and I am following even now. Why? Because I do not want any dispute. If I directly deal with tenant, this is always going to be a fight. If I see the property and if the tenant is not upkeeping, I might get angry. I might have all sort of nasty things. Whereas having with my property manager is like they are the third party. They would mitigate, they would deal, and I do not have to deal with the tenant directly, and they do not have to similarly the tenant do not have to deal with the landlord directly. So it is actually work. This is the principle that I follow, and it's also from my insurance point of view, it's good, because if I manage and if I do not do properly some of the compliance checks, if I don't do right, and then I will see that my insurance company might not pay should there be a claim. So yes, this is my third principle, that I would always rent out my property through a licensed real estate property manager. Principle number 4 is that always inspect the property before signing the contract. I know way too many people, they do not follow this, and that's their decision. For me, I am not comfortable without seeing the property. I'm not comfortable without visiting that location to get a feeling about where I'm buying the property. And once I visit, once I see that area, once I look into the property and I'm comfortable of buying, and then only I will sign the contract. That's just my comfort zone. I feel equally nervous of not seeing a property, and then I cannot think of buying a property without seeing that property. Because once I see that property and once I inspect, then I understand that okay, this is what I am buying, and it's just me, I get that more comfortable. My comfort level goes up when I actually see that property and then I sign the contract. Principle number 5 is get a pre-approval before I look in that particular area. For me, if I don't have a pre-approval, if I don't know how much I'll be able to borrow and how much deposit that I have, I would not look for a area and I would not look for a property to buy, because it's a waste of time for me otherwise. If I'm looking for a property of, let's say, $800,000 and my loan is approved, or my loan approval will be only $400,000 or $500,000, then I'm completely wasting my time, because all the things that I am doing is I won't be able to afford it, I won't be able to buy it. I would rather channelize my time to do something that is effective, that is fruitful, which is to get my loan sorted, to get my pre-approval loan sorted. And once it is done, then I know, and I also know how much deposit that I have, and then combine these, then I will look for the properties in that range. That way it is more effective. Then I know that if I find something, I'll be able to buy. So this is something, the principle that I follow, and I would not go outside of it. Principle number 6 is always I will take appropriate insurance, particularly building insurance, that I will always take. Because without insurance, I am not going to run a rental property, I am not going to have an investment property. Now, insurance is a comfort factor, depends on person to person. Some people take a little bit of more insurance, some people take a little bit less. I actually always tell myself that the building, if in case of fire, if the building gets damaged, then I need the insurance. But a little bit of content here and there, that I self-insure myself. That means, if tenant does some sort of damage in a accepted way or general wear and tear, that I can cover. But I need to make sure if the tenant damages significantly, that gets covered by my insurance company. So having an appropriate insurance is a principle that I follow, and all my properties I have appropriate insurance. Principle number 7 is that I would always buy something where I can add value. And this is so important for me, because I do not want to buy something like a townhouse or a brand new apartment, because there I cannot add any value. Because if I can add any value, I believe that I would not be able to maximize my investment return. I would not be able to maximize with my investment skills, would not be able to maximize it. So I want something that I would buy which is an ugly house. I buy something where I can subdivide. I would buy something where I can actually solve a problem, that rather than buying something which is kind of a brand new, buying something which is completely brand new stuff, somebody actually solved that problem. I would not buy those. So adding value, I would buy something where I can add value, is an important part and an important principle that I follow. Principle number 8 is that buy something or buy somewhere where I can inspect regularly. This is an important part, because I live in Sydney. So for me, a closer proximity would be Victoria, Melbourne, or Brisbane, Queensland. Because if I go further, like if I cannot go to Perth, because that means I need 2 or 3 days time just to go there, stay there and come back to just inspect property regularly. That's something I would not do. This is my principle. I want to go in a place where I can come back almost on the same day, in a few hours time, in whether if it is a Melbourne or in Brisbane or Gold Coast, I can quickly go buy properties, or I can inspect the property and then I can come back. I actually follow the principle that I want to be closer proximity, because I'm not buying like 30, 40, 50 properties. Most properties that I am buying, it's like a pick and choose. I would actually go in that direction of having a closer proximity, which is like either Brisbane or Gold Coast or Melbourne, in that area. In a nutshell, I want to buy somewhere where I can go and come back on the same day. Principle number 9 is that I would first buy residential properties, and then I will have some sort of a growth. From there I will transition to commercial. Now this is something that I haven't done it yet, means I haven't bought any commercial property, but this is what I am actually going. I have a plan to buy more commercial properties with the help of these residential properties that I bought. Residential properties always gives me growth and the commercial properties will give me income. So it is almost impossible to get both growth and income from a residential properties rather than moving towards the commercial properties where I can get more income. As we know that the commercial properties have all the tenant pays all the outgoings, means all the water, electricity and all the charges or the council charges, everything is paid by the tenant, whereas the residential property, council rates, insurance and everything paid by the owner, by the landlord. So I would always go with the growth with the residential property and the income with commercial properties. And this is something that I am transitioning. Hopefully next 2-3 years time, I will transition from residential to commercial. And the principle number 10 is that I would not invest in a high risk area such as mining town because it is too risky for me. In my risk appetite, I am a very low risk profile guy, so I would always look for somewhere where it is a low or medium risk and buy something cheaper properties, as cheap as possible and uplift that property a little bit and then rent it out. Whereas if I go with a high risk area, maybe I will get a higher return, but hey, that's not my comfort zone and I do not want to go in that outside of my comfort zone because then I'll get nervous, I get tensed and I might not be able to sleep at night properly. So the property gets vacant and probably next 3 to 6 months I might not even have a tenant because of the mining boom is over. So these are the 10 principles that I follow. As I said that this is my principle, there is no right and wrong, and I believe that some of them you might not agree with that, but hey, this is what that I am living with and this is how, because I want to become financial independent. I want to do something with the property, but at the same time I do not want to be exposed too much. So these are the principles that I follow. Let me know which of these you actually follow or something that you contradict, in the comment section. I would look forward to see your comments. Thank you so much for listening and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.